Are you concerned if you try to grow a business from your YouTube channel, you're gonna fail? Lose time, lose money, and look like a complete fool? Yeah, I am actually. How did you know? Well, because that was me 19 years ago when I started my first business. But over the years, I stumbled across 4 powerful business growth lessons that eventually enabled me to get my turnover above $1 million a year. So in this video, I'm gonna share them with you to help you get over that fear fast. I'm gonna show you some powerful old school business methods that most online business owners don't even know exist. And I'm gonna show you a trick that will keep people coming back to your business time and time again. All right, so this first lesson is probably the most powerful lesson I have ever learned. It enabled me to keep my first ever client for 10 years. In fact, when I sold my first business, they were still there. And what's crazy was our client retention rates were 90% year on year as a result of this too. But it's kind of a weird story and also why I ended up wanting to quit. So I didn't want to go to uni or get a job, but somehow I managed to buy into a franchise called True Green with no experience in business at all. Why would they sell that to an 18-year-old? Anyway, we'd basically take people's lawns that were full of moss and weeds and transform them into like golf fairways. They'd look amazing. And this was really niche, but it went really well, kind of. So what would happen was the first year, people would sign up for an entire year's service and their expectations would be here. Most of them had such awful lawns that they didn't actually think it'd be possible to transform them. The thing is, sometimes, after just a few weeks, the transformation could already be complete, so they'd be absolutely blown away. People would call us and say, "What did you put on my lawn? It looks amazing." So year 1 was always a doddle to impress them, meaning they'd always sign up for year 2, which is when my life would become a living hell. Because now they had 100% grass, whereas before it might have been like 20%. That meant they now had to mow it, and water it, and look after it. And of course, they didn't do that. And because their lawn had looked so good so fast before, their expectations had gone from here to here. So all we get all summer was complaints. "My lawn's never looked so bad. What have you done? Why is it yellow? You've killed it." I'd go around their houses to show them how dry the ground was and say,
"All you need to do is water it."
and then they'd say, "Oh, okay, I don't really want to do that." And that was just the end of the conversation. So when it came to asking clients if they wanted to sign up for another year, I was always incredibly nervous. But it always blew me away how nearly every single one of them would say yes and then just pay me there and then. I had 600 clients and it felt like 550 of them didn't water their lawns and moaned at me all the time. And it wasn't until recently I realized why they stuck about and kept paying me year after year, and I think it's the most powerful lesson ever. And that was because in year 1 they had a quick win. They knew the potential of what was possible with the service, so even after a year of it looking rubbish, they trusted that I could do what I said I could and kept paying me to come back. So if you're planning a product, the number one question I'd ask myself is, how can I get them a quick win? Something that proves to them that this is worth their time and effort fast, so that they'll never want to leave, even through the tougher times that will be ahead. Now the next lesson was one that really shocked me because it proved that being the best at something isn't actually what matters in business. So when I sold my first business, I was like,
"I'm gonna start a video production company."
video had always been a hobby. I had no training. I didn't really know how to use a proper camera. But I wanted to do something I was super passionate about. So I put a suit on and went networking and just said,
"Yep, you need a video, that's what I do."
and then I got business doing that. Now at these networking events, I'd meet other production people. 2 in particular were really good. They'd been to film school, had all the kit, they knew what all the buttons did, and their clients' videos looked amazing. But in the end, I was getting so much business, I had to hire them to help me, until eventually they had to go and get jobs because they couldn't get clients. The only reason mine went on to actually do okay was because I spent 10 years learning sales and marketing. That is the lesson. It doesn't matter how amazing your product is, poor sales and marketing will not get you anywhere. An average product with great sales and marketing will. Not that I'm encouraging you make average products. Try and do both the best you can. I mean, a great example of this is mineral water. It's the same thing in every bottle, but you have brands selling way more than others because they come up with marketing campaigns that sell the stuff. So as a YouTuber, if you want to make money, you need to give time to learning how to do this. Some books I'll link to below: Hormozi's $100 million Offers, Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Sabri, and the entire .com series by Russell Brunson. Now the next lesson was something that will enable you to hold on to your clients for longer, and to me it's one of the most important parts of business. Personally, I think in the online space this is often totally ignored though. So going back to the lawn business, I got so many complaints yet nobody left me. Yet the biggest competition in the UK had a 20% retention rate and mine was 90% and higher most years. But why? Well, because when there was a problem, I'd just drop everything for them and go and look at it and talk to them. Whereas the competition would just say,
"Yeah, we'll come and have a look when we've booked in the next 2 months."
But to me, this was crazy crazy because I didn't think I would want to wait months for someone to address a problem I had. So I just treated my clients how I wanted to be treated. And what happened because of this was something I call upserving. So they would sign up for one thing and everyone would get upserved to the VIP treatment. And they loved it. So when planning your products, you can say this is what you're going to get, but think about what you might be able to add to your products that you're not advertising so much to make your buyers feel special. It's why I get emails like this about my cohort. I say one thing in my marketing and then I give them more than they would expect. But how can you do that? Well, it's actually really tough sometimes. If you're selling on-demand products, it could be a lot trickier. But you could simply update the content in a video course every 6 months to make it better. And that in itself is going to be a cool surprise for your buyers. One example of this is I recently built a whole new course about building a studio, but decided to give it to my members of Thumbnail University for free instead of selling it, as I wanted to try and over-deliver for them. And hopefully that is what happened and the guys really appreciated it. Or another option you have is you could put on a live Q&A every 6 months for anyone that bought anything, or just send them new PDFs you've built simply because you might think they like it. I personally do not think service is pushed enough in the info business space. Everyone wants this dream of passive income where they make something and never touch it again. But that little extra touch that takes a little bit more time will not go unnoticed, and it's going to help you sell a lot more in the future too. Which leads us on to the next lesson, which will enable you to upserve much easier than if you ignore it. In fact, it's pretty much the thing that makes upserving possible. And the funny thing is, I really screwed this up in my second business, but nailed it in my first, which was really dumb looking back. So my first business, the lawn care business, when I started, I used to drive it into the town we target every day, and 5 vans from the competitions company would always drive past me. And then I'd go and quote for a client, and they'd say,
well, you're double the price of the other company.
So I'd give them my reason as to why, which usually converted about 80% of the leads, but the other company were just everywhere. And I always worried that I should put my prices down because of it. Now what's funny is about 3 years into me targeting this town, the other company no longer existed, and I had most of the business because they had the worst reputation. Why? Because they were so cheap. They could only deliver what they sold to the client. I sold the same thing, but always delivered far more and could afford to because I charged more. So when something went wrong, I would address it on the day like that. And my up service meant I'd do things like rake up leaves if they were on the lawn, and the other company would say,
well, call us when you've cleaned up the leaves and we'll come back.
I even watered someone's tomatoes for them when they were on holiday every day because I was driving past. So I just offered to help. That person ended up referring so many clients to us, we almost ended up doing their entire street. But in my production company, we made the critical mistake of being cheap. And cheap is always expensive to someone. What that means is when you go cheap, you attract people who can only afford cheap, and the amount of money is still going to be high to them. So cheap feels very high stakes to some people and doesn't allow you to upserve. This also means they'll have way higher expectations, and they can often become a nightmare to work with. And they'll refer you more business by saying these guys are cheap, not amazing value. And there's a massive difference. Being more expensive often brings you better clients you can keep for longer and over-deliver for, and they often use what they've paid for in a way that can get them results, which is just a recipe for success. Now, if you're thinking,
well, I want to help those people who can't afford it,
that's what your YouTube channel's for. Okay, right, so this next lesson will make you more money by doing a lot less. So listen up. So in the lawn business, one reason the other company went out of business was because they gave their clients lots of choice. You could have fertilization and bolt-on aeration and scarification, all these words that mean nothing to you, but they had like 10 options they'd try and sell people. How were people supposed to know what they needed? They were not the experts in the subject. However, I had one offer. Everyone signed up for the same thing, and then I just took care of the lawn for a year, and they didn't really care about the process, they just wanted the results, so that's all I ever sold them. So we said to them, you either have everything or nothing, and it's expensive because I believe that in order to get a result, you can't ignore any of these things that we have to include, so we just simply won't sell it to you without everything because it won't work. And this worked because a confused buyer is not a buyer. So try not to overcomplicate your offers. Sometimes they might feel so simple, it worries you, but that could actually be a very good sign. But hang on a second. Even if your offer's simple and your service is amazing, how do you actually get people over the line to buy something? Because if you can't do that, then none of this is going to work. Well, there's actually 5 simple things you need to do, and this video here is going to teach you what they are and how to do them. So click on that next so you can grow your YouTube business faster.